Hello, everybody. Quick show of hands or bit of feedback. Can anyone have issues hearing me right now? Can you all hear me okay? Got a few questions rolling in. Excellent. All right, so it's about 6 o'clock here in Toronto, Eastern Time. Some of you who have been following me for the last few weeks at least may have noticed I've been trying to do sort of a Instagram story Q&A every week or so, just to sort of engage with folks and answer any questions that you guys may have. When I coach workshops, seminars, things like that, in my opinion, the most valuable part of that is the very end, when all the training is done and we open the floor for some Q&A time. And basically how this goes usually is I'll say, all right, nice work today. We'll do a review of everything. Now, before I send you guys home, does anyone have any questions for me? And there's dead silence. No questions. Okay, we'll see you later. And then after we officially say goodbye, everyone comes up and starts asking their questions. So I know that there's definitely some, shyness or vulnerability involved in sort of putting yourself out there and asking questions, but it's definitely helpful, both for me as a coach to sort of be able to articulate my thoughts and ideas about training, and of course for the people I coach to hopefully learn a little something. So let's jump right in. We do have some questions in the queue here, so I think I can just kind of scroll through them. And again, please let me know if you're having any issues hearing me. I assume that this is all good. Loud and clear from Vaughn Coffee and Bacon. Thank you for the update. Okay, so I'll scroll back up. People joined. Let's see here. Who's the first question going to be? From Samir. Any kayak confessions video coming? And I really appreciate that you spelled both kayak and confessions with the K, as I do in the YouTube. That shows me that you've been following for a while, so I appreciate that. We're just getting out of winter here in Toronto, so yes, hopefully during the summer. I think honestly, on the lake is the safest place to be right now in terms of social distancing and catching viruses. So I would love to. I used to live in Victoria on Vancouver Island, and I had a couple plastic Costco kayaks there. Now that I live in Toronto, I don't have anything, so it's going to be more of like a rental situation, so I'll have to plan that in advance. But yeah, man, that's one of my favorite things to do is get out on the water. It's a great, it's a great form of exercise, but it's more of like, it's more of like a mental escape really than anything, to sort of get out in nature, move your body, breathe the fresh air, look out on the horizon and see absolutely nothing. It's pretty cool. So it's a great place to sort of do some deep thinking, and hopefully not drop your phone in the water when you're recording videos. Next question from Alicia Lopez Mena. That's all one word. Hopefully I got the names right there. When was your last rest day? Today is a rest day for me. When I'm typically training on a normal schedule, I usually rest Thursdays and Sundays. Those are sort of the two rest days that are typical in the program that I follow, which is from Training Think Tank. My coach, Max, has most of his athletes on Thursday and Sunday, so that's just easy to coordinate. Historically, like when I was doing my own programming back in the day from 2011 through 2014 or 15, I would usually also rest 2 days a week. I think, depending on your sport, for my sport, CrossFit, I think it's valuable to train hard and maybe do multiple sessions. Maybe you might do 2 workouts or 3 workouts some days, but then other days you need to take totally off. That mirrors a bit more the challenge and the stimulus of something like CrossFit Regionals or CrossFit Games, where you have multiple days in a row of many workouts. It's not good to train like that all year, but it's definitely nice to have a couple days off per week to sort of reset and then feel like you want to hit it really hard the next day. Next question from Alaska Goldilocks. I think you're one of my top followers. I appreciate you joining in tonight. How's social distancing going for you? It's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Honestly, my lifestyle is pretty similar right now. The only difference is not really like having gym access. But even when I do train at the gym, I'm kind of a bit of like a loner. I don't mind talking to people at all, but I'm there to, I'm there to train and try and sort of improve and kind of performance focused and career focused in that sense. So for me, the main part of going to the gym is not really social time, so I'm not missing that a ton. Of course, it's always nice to have banter in between sets and workouts and things like that. But I honestly don't like. One of my favorite things to do is just sit around the house and whatever, scroll Instagram, work on the computer, watch movies, listen to music, things like that. So it's all good. I'm living the dream right now. How's it going for you? I know that some people, this is honestly one of the worst things in the world for some people, and I try and be cognizant of that. So if you're struggling with the current situation, I really hope that it ends soon. But if not, I hope that we can all find creative ways to sort of support each other and keep going. Next question from MJ Carmen R. Oh, hey Carmen. How do you keep motivated? How do you keep motivated when you just want to sleep during these dark times? I just let myself sleep, to be honest. I think so. I talked a little bit about this. I was just outside on a walk with Lindsay, trying to sort of keep away from people, but get out and get a bit of sunshine and fresh air and talk about things. And one of the topics was how people just have different coping mechanisms. So in times like these, dark times, stressful times of big change and uncertainty, some people sort of react in a way that's like clutching and grabbing and trying to keep it together. And the analogy I used was like, like when you break a vase, you scrape up all the pieces and you try and glue them back together, and you get, see, I still got a vase. It's still the same. It's still good. It's still fine. And then I guess there's a different way of reacting, which is just, you just throw the vase in the garbage. Maybe I never needed a vase. Maybe I can get a different vase. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to react. But like if you're someone who is lucky enough to still have a job, I would try to be super thankful for that and adhere as best you can to support and keep working for the company that's supporting you. But if you're someone who's now currently in a transition phase, or if you're working from home with super flexible hours, you could kind of use this time as an experiment to be like, well, if I'm someone who's ever expressed like, I feel super stressed, like really wound up or overloaded or overwhelmed with all the tasks of daily life, of commuting and work and talking to the water cooler and things like that. Well, now that all those have been removed, instead of desperately trying to sort of clutch and grasp and keep all those same feelings together, maybe see as an experiment what it's like to just let all that go. I'm not going to recommend either way, but so for me personally, like maybe now's a great time to catch up on sleep and sort of let your routine be a bit more fluid and just see how that impacts your life and your well-being. Interesting experiment. Next question from Votanetti. Which bears are best, Panda or Teddy? I guess Theodore Roosevelt could maybe beat a panda in a fight if he had like a big elephant gun like he used to hunt with. Now, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but I have been to China. It was before all this started. I have been to China, and I went to a panda sanctuary in Chengdu. And man, pandas are useless. They're fat, they're clumsy, they require insane amounts of food just to survive, even though they don't do anything. And they climb up. Some of them have injuries because they climb up really high in these tall bamboo trees, and they fall asleep, and then they fall out of the tree and hurt themselves. So I would not bet on a panda in a fight or a comparison of ferocity or usefulness. They probably taste good, though. Next question. From Jap Van Zevenbergen. Jap Van Zevenbergen. Hopefully that's 20% correct pronunciation. What are your thoughts on using Olympic lifting in track and field training for explosive strength? I think it's fantastic if you're using like, say, like variants or portions of the lift. So, I mean, I am pretty good at Olympic lifting, meaning I can perform the full lifts without hurting myself. But a lot of track and field athletes can't. So if you're forcing a track and field athlete to go through, you know, full squat snatches and they're tweaking their shoulders and their back and their hips are hurting, then it's probably not going to help the track and field. You see that a lot with, like, not that it's necessarily similar sports, but you see that a lot with, like, basketball players, where most basketball players, maybe they can do lifts, but they should probably be doing them, like, from the hang or from blocks, because they're so tall and lanky that the starting position is super awkward and not really helpful for them. So depending on your, you know, if you're, say, a sprinter and you need to start from the blocks with a steep, like a really bent up knee and hip angle, you probably benefit from doing some deep squats and lunges and things like that. But perhaps, you know, something more simple and maybe less injury prone, like deadlifts from certain positions, could be enough to build the strength in the muscles of the hips and posterior chain to maybe improve running performance. But in terms of your question, training for explosive strength, from what I understand from the research, training of speed and explosiveness and all that sort of thing, they're very specific to the speed of contraction. So in saying that, I think, in my opinion, it's better to train lighter possibly than it is to train heavier, to make sure that you're moving your limbs and moving your body at a pretty fast pace. If you had to pick, of course, I think the best training program would probably involve a range of loads, a range of stimuli, but you don't want to turn them into an Olympic lifter. You want them to be a good sprinter. So I think, you know, those lifts are a good basis for a program, but if you start trying to get too fancy, it might not be as helpful. All right, next question from Big G Fit. What are your top beard grooming tips? I hate to let you down, man, but the whole reason I'm growing a beard is to avoid grooming. So it's really more of a laziness thing. I guess I'm just lucky that I have pretty full coverage. Unfortunately, I don't really have as much hair on my head, so I guess there was sort of a mass migration from my scalp to my face. So whatever I am thankful for down here, I'm wishing I had up top. But tips is just time. Like, you're not going to have a beard in a week or a month. It's more of like a few months of just not touching your face. And then after that, then you get to make some modifications, maybe trim up the neck or the cheek or put some wax or dye in there. I've waxed my mustache a couple times, but that's after like 8 months when you actually have enough length to like tweedle it out, which is a lot of fun, but just time, honestly, is the number one tip. Kind of like fitness, right? There's no real shortcuts in fitness or in facial hair. Comment from Titiago. Lucas Parker is a funny man. I don't know who Lucas Parker is. Spelled with a K, Lukas. He sounds like a funny guy. Send him my way. Next question from Colin Canadian. I recognize that name. Another one of my top followers. I'm on the market for some peanut butter. Any recommendations? Yep. Fatso peanut butter. They're hometown hero of mine. So from Victoria, BC, an old friend of mine who I met in the CrossFit gym that I started out in. She branched out and started an amazing performance peanut butter company. So it's not just peanut butter. It has like all these super healthy extra ingredients, chia seeds, flax seeds, coconut oil, avocado oil. So it's like a superfood, and it's super delicious. So I definitely and they're doing some great things right now to help out, because peanut butter is a great food to donate. So for people who are in a rough spot right now, Fatso's putting in a lot of extra work to make peanut butter donations to food banks and things like that. So please go support them if you can. Next question from Quilby. How to keep squat numbers up during times where weights may be at a deficit. That is an excellent question. I talked just a moment ago about gains and strength and speed being very specific to like contraction styles and contraction speeds. So if you go for many many weeks, if you go for months without real heavy loading, you're definitely going to see a decrease. But you can still stimulate the same, fiber types, let's say, whatever, like explosive muscle fibers. You can still stimulate those with exercises, and basically thinking in two ways. One, increasing the explosivity. So you're training at home, try and do more explosive stuff. So that would be vertical jumps, broad jumps. Maybe you only have light dumbbells. Well, you stick those on your shoulders and you jump as high as you can and absorb carefully back down. That sort of eccentric absorbing of weight from a jump is great. So something like, if you've heard of the exercise called a depth jump, start really easy with these. So you go from honestly like a 6-inch height, maybe like if you have a stairway in your house, like 1 stair, 2 stairs, that's probably more than enough if you're just starting out with this. And a depth jump is essentially jumping from a height. You jump from a height and you land lower on the ground and you absorb that impact. And the great thing about physics right now, you're essentially using the acceleration due to gravity as your weight stimulus. So it's 9.8 meters per second squared. So every little bit you go higher up, it exponentially increases the speed that you have to absorb and reverse. So depth jumps are a great way to really load up your muscles and your skeleton. And then you can do, like a plyometric depth jump. So you jump from a height, you land and absorb, and immediately jump back up. You do those in like a low volume, that's a pretty good stimulus. So that's one way, is like thinking of being just more explosive and doing a lot of plyometric jump stuff. The second way is to sort of essentially cut things in half to make things double difficult. What I mean by that is go single-sided, go unilateral, go, say, one leg at a time. If we're talking about, say, a squat as an example exercise, well, if you have, limited weights or only body weight, if you start doing a lot more single leg stuff, now you're taking all the body weight that you have and you're putting it on one leg instead of two. So that can be a kind of a good way. So think, lunge variations, shrimp squats, pistol squats. Man, work on your pistol. If you want to get, strong and mobile and have a good transferability of leg strength when you're done quarantine, come out of quarantine as a pistol pro. It will definitely help you. All right, next question. Question from Angelo with 3 L's and too many O's. Can you do body weight exercises every day? Yes. Can you do an intense max effort metcon of body weight exercises every day? I might not recommend that, but the term body weight exercise is pretty broad, right? So everything from, doing burpee backflips in your kitchen to standing in front of the kitchen mirror and doing have you done CARS, C-A-R-S, controlled articular rotations? That's like a super slow joint rotation where you're exploring your end ranges and working on, the mind-muscle connection and your range of motion. You can do that every day. So I would think about trying to move your body every day for, some amount of time. If you can do this, I would recommend like a few times a day. So 15, 20 minutes in the morning to sort of get loose. Maybe in the afternoon, you do something with a little bit more intensity, something like squat jumps, burpees, things like that. Then maybe for like a third session or a third movement piece before bed, you do some more breathing and yoga type exercises to wind down and help you sleep better. So you can do a lot of body weight stuff all day. What I would recommend that you vary is the intensity. So maybe you have 2, 3, maybe 4 days a week where you really push it and feel like your heart is pounding out of your chest, and the other days you want to be a little more sustainable. You want to feel better at the end of your workout than when you started. I think that's a good goal for most sessions during the week. Let's see. Right, we got a few thumbs up. Got sounds good, dude. I'm glad you guys actually stuck around and listened to my answer. I'm not just shouting this into the void. All right, TH636. The Rock is also on Instagram Live. Would you consider combining live streams with him? I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to cross the streams. Wasn't that the main lesson from the Ghostbusters movie? And I'm sure if I did combine streams with The Rock, he would greatly overpower mine. But I'd love to meet him one day. He seems like a cool guy. Teach him some Olympic lifting. Maybe he can teach me how to lift 1,000 pounds on the leg press. Got a few thumbs up. Some good to goes. Hello from Germany, from Gab Villamil. Therapy exercises for wrists. Therapy exercises for wrists. I have a lot of wrist issues over the years. I think something like CrossFit, where so much barbell weight and body weight is being essentially, right, it's like transmitted through a chain or a cable to whatever you're doing, whether you're hanging from a pull-up bar, doing snatches, whatever, you're almost always grabbing something, and that force is being transmitted through your wrists. Throw into that the gymnastics loading that we do. We're kind of expected to do like advanced gymnastics in terms of like handstand walking and things like that with not a ton of lifestyle background and training. The wrists definitely take a beating. What I like to do is I do a lot of banded distraction type stuff. So for example, if my wrist is like on the floor here, I have a band wrapped around going this way. Does that make sense? So the band is going this way, my wrist is going this way, and that helps to sort of encourage some range of motion, encourage some distraction and gapping in the joint, to sort of help me get a bit of a better stretch, because there's a lot of bones and ligaments and tendons and joints in that area. So giving them a bit of space and freedom to move is a good step. Step 2 is going to be around the elbow. So hitting some lacrosse ball smashing or some self-massage up around the epicondyles, the medial epicondyle and the lateral epicondyle, basically where the muscles, the big muscles of the wrist originate. Doing some massage there can really loosen things up down the chain and make the wrist feel a lot better. In terms of specific exercises, I like doing wrist push-ups. So that's actually going on the floor like here, and you do a push-up and you end up in this position, and then you go down in the push-up and you end up in this position. I would do those from my knees. I'll do them on a bench or a box. I can't handle my full body weight on the floor. That's super advanced. So start light. Next question. Also from Gab Villamil. Can you speak French? No. I was actually born in Montreal, Quebec, but only lived there for like a year as a baby, so I didn't really learn much. I grew up on the West Coast, and we don't really speak as much French in British Columbia. Sorry. Oh, MJ says, can't hear you. Uh-oh. Sorry about that. Can you hear me now? Maybe I had my finger over the microphone. Some more comments rolling in. I just scroll down to the bottom real quick just to make sure there's not other people saying they can't hear me. I'm honestly not sure where the sound in my phone goes in. Probably the bottom somewhere. Alright, I'm going to go back up. I saw something from Jen Nickel. Where did she go? JL Nick. Hope you and Lindsay doing well through all of this. You'll have to come visit again sometime when all this is over. Yes, we will. Maybe do the Olympic lifting workshop at CrossFit Industry. Stay healthy. That would be amazing. CrossFit Industry is one of the one of the best sort of host gyms that I've been to for my seminars. It's a great gym when you get to stay in the spare bedroom at the owner's house and enjoy barbecue with their family in the yard. I hope you and the community are hanging in there. In terms of like pandemic strategy, I think Collingwood is probably a good place to hang out. It's a little bit more isolated, but and a lot of cool outdoor space for social distancing. So hopefully the gym will be up and running soon when this is all over, and we can come back and do some training. All right, next question from Ivan Marentes. Hi, Lucas. My question is, which training program do you follow? I follow a training program from Training Think Tank. This is a great organization, as is described in the name Think Tank. So it's a bunch of coaches and experts, elite CrossFit level coaches, coaches from other sports, physiologists, movement specialists, things like that. And they all get together and think of cool shit to make people better at CrossFit and other sports. My coach's name is Max. He's the boss. He's the owner. And right now they've just launched basically an app and a website where they have a few streams or paths of programming. And one of them is it's called TTT at home. So it has a bunch of at-home workouts that are programmed every day, all week. So I'd recommend you go check that out. C. Prevo, 27. Hi, neighbor. Well, hi there, neighbor. I'd poke my head out the window and wave to you, but I think you're on the wrong side of the building. Yeah, it's pretty cool. So Carolyn Prevo, who's a rookie female CrossFit Games athlete from last year, absolutely crushed it at the Games last year. I think was the top Canadian female, if I'm not mistaken. She happens to live just a building behind me in this condo area that we're in. So it's kind of funny how that works out. Because when I lived in Victoria, BC, there were also other I went to grade school with another CrossFit Games athlete, Christina Verhagen at the time, now Christina Seeley. We were in like grade 5th grade together, and then we ended up going to CrossFit Games together in 2016. So it's pretty cool how it's kind of a small world. Question from Marty Boy with too many Y's. How much should your calorie deficit be? Negative deficit. So 2 negatives equals a positive. Personally, I'm not really training for weight loss, and I'm not really training for, physique, although I have an amazing physique. I go for a surplus, man. Like, I'm just, I guess, lucky that I don't really gain a lot of body fat. I know that that's not the case for everyone, but if I go for a deficit, I definitely feel more tired, more grumpy, more lethargic. My training performance goes down. But if you're not trying to train for whatever, CrossFit regionals or the games or sanctionals or whatever the sport's going to be in the future, and maybe you're thinking more about body weight loss or composition or physique or aesthetics or whatever, yeah, I mean, I think the typical recommendation is to not go too crazy, to shoot for like a 500 calorie per week deficit or something like that, to make small, reasonable reductions day after day, week after week, month after month, and then imagine where you'll be a year from now if you keep making those small, consistent things instead of, making a crazy change for a few days that's not sustainable and then you swing back the other direction. I mean, that's yo-yo dieting. That's rule number 1 to watch out for, right? Next question from Jap. Oh, I think I answered this question earlier. Do you think Olympic lifts is beneficial for track and field athletes? Because we track athletes do a lot of it, like power cleans and power snatches. Yeah, I think I talked about this, so sorry if you saw that already and just doubled up the question. But yes, short answer, the power variations, power cleans, power snatches, those are probably the best ones to stick with. And if you're more of like a sprinter type athlete, definitely you want to get some squatting or some deeper range in there. The real White Heat, favorite Canadian beer. I do drink a little bit of beer. I currently have one on my bedside table here. This is AGD, Alberta Genuine Draft from Big Rock Brewery. We got some friends from CrossFit Coliseum that are involved in Big Rock, so that would be my recommendation there. We go to the local brewery for parties sometimes. They have a great like event space, just big concrete floor. They got like foosball table, karaoke, things like that. They host comedy nights, so they're a great local business that I like to support, and they have some amazing beers on tap. I had one. Oh, what was it? It was like a chocolate orange beer. Basically, it was the porter, dark chocolate orange porter, something like that. It tasted like one of those, those chocolate oranges that you smack on the table and unwrap. Like, it was like that. It wasn't too sweet. It was delicious. I could drink that all night. So hopefully I can get some once quarantine's over. Next question, another one from Gab Villamil. You do ant physical activity on rest days. If every word here was spelled correctly, the answer would be no, because ants lift, what is it, 9 times their body weight. So I don't do that on rest days. But if I assume you mean you do any physical activity on rest days, I notice that if I do 0, I feel worse and I have trouble sleeping. But if you train, it's not a rest day. So on a rest day, I like to get out for like a walk or like a bike ride or a hike, just some fresh air, easy activity. I don't like it when people say like, oh, I had a great rest day today, went for, a 5K run and did some muscle up practice and bop. It's like, well, how restful was that really? Next question from West Lacey Makeup. What area of CrossFit are working on improving the most right now? What area of CrossFit are you, assuming, working on improving the most right now? Literally right now, I have a bit of a back tweak, not really an injury, but just feel like my SI joint is kind of out of whack. So I've been doing a lot of just self-treatment stuff, prehab, rehab type exercises, a lot of glute activation, single arm, farmer carries, things like that. So I guess the answer would be like core stability and hip control and things like that. But in terms of like an actual area of CrossFit, the thing that I need to work on is the more like cardio aerobic capacity type stuff. So I'm very lucky that we have a Concept 2 rowing machine down in our basement storage in the condo building. So we just brought that up and it's sitting on the balcony. And I'm going to be doing some long, slow rowing at home on the balcony, which will be really nice as the weather gets better. Today was okay, but it's still pretty cold in the mornings here in Toronto. So hopefully during the summer that will be a really enjoyable activity. Next question from Definite Choice. Are you a cannabis guy? I use CBD products. So I'm not a fan of smoking just because as an athlete, I think as a rule of thumb, you probably don't want to be like burning things and inhaling particles and smoke into your lungs. It's probably just, I've had a bit of exercise-induced asthma, so I don't think smoking is the way for me to go. Of course, I say that as I take a sip of beer. But yeah, I mean, I think this, like, in terms of legality in sport, that's kind of in flux right now. I think it's heading in the direction of it will no longer be a banned substance anywhere, but it's still kind of a banned substance. So from that perspective, I'm just not going to deal with it. But I mean, it just anecdotally and historically, I think it's used as a medicinal product for a lot of people, and I think that's probably pretty helpful. But yeah, I personally, I stick more to CBD stuff because I find it does help me sleep. I use products from Relief Topical Wellness. They're a sponsor of mine. They have a great under the tongue dropper that I use before bed, and they have an amazing topical cream, and it comes in like a deodorant stick. So most companies come in like a toothpaste tube, but this one comes in a deodorant stick, so you can actually rub it on your muscles really effectively. It's a great one. Another question from Alaska Goldilocks. Are you a fan of the Hatch cycle or Smolov, or is there something you like better? I have done Smolov, I think 2 or 3 times, years and years ago, and it works. It hurts, but it works. So if you have a few months where you don't need to walk quickly or go up and down any stairs, Smolov is the way to go. So for those of you who are in quarantine right now and you have a squat rack with enough weight to get near your 1RM, try the Smolov squat cycle. Next question from Adrienne 47,000. Hey Lucas, what would you say to someone who wants to go to the games? Wait until next year, I guess. I don't think the games this year is really going to happen, which I feel really bad saying because I want to give as much, good vibes and juju as I can. But I mean, realistically, if the Olympics is postponing, the CrossFit Games is probably going to follow suit. But just as a general question, I guess in some ways it might be easier now to get to the games than it was years ago, just because there's more spots, right? With these national champion spots, you have 150 spots for men and 150 spots for women to go to the games instead of just 40 or 20 or whatever it's been in the past. So in terms of going to the games, most people don't get to go, right? If you just look at the numbers of the Open, there's however many tens of thousand people signing up for the CrossFit Open, and they narrow that down to 0.00 whatever 1%. So in some ways, it's kind of like winning the lottery, but you can actually work towards it in a smart, reasonable way. So in that sense, it's more, you have more control over it than the lottery, but not much. Yeah, it's just, I think it's a matter of being honest with yourself of like, what is your athletic background? What is your training age? And what's the distance you need to cover? What's the gap you need to cover to get to the level of regionals athletes, sanctionals athletes, games athletes? The great thing is that data is available. You can go look at games workouts and see people's times and scores and weights they lift and things like that. And it's going to be a matter of assessment of like, oh, is it going to take me a few months? Is it going to take me a year? Is it going to take me a few years of dedication and consistency and training and excellent coaching? I think those are just a handful of the practical things that are needed to get to the games. In addition to that, a lot of luck, genetics, support system from family and friends. Yeah, it's not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it. Emersondo Atletismo says, hey. Oh, he then says, how are you? I'm pretty good, man. Next question, or a comment from Ash MCA. Love a positive outlook. So, too many O's. Much negativity on social these days. Praise hands. Yeah, I'd agree with you. That's, I guess, depending on who you're following and your Instagram algorithm, your feed is going to look different than mine. My feed has a lot of positivity, almost too much for me. I mean, it's weird times. There's a lot of people right now that are just really suffering, going through a hard time, whether that's career-related, money-related, family. Like, imagine if someone in your family had coronavirus. You probably wouldn't have a very positive outlook. So not to be a downer, but yeah, I mean, it is what it is. Just gotta keep on keeping on. If being positive works for you, then do it. If being negative works for you, then do it, but maybe don't share it so much. Next question. I want to see you give a TED talk about how brutal pandas are. Yeah, man, pandas suck. And they look fake, too. You get up close to them, you look them in the eye, and a panda doesn't look like it's a real animal. Like, it looks like a fat little person wearing a panda suit. So you know how, like, when someone's wearing, like, a Halloween mask or, like, some type of, like, realistic mask, the mask sits out from their face, so their eyes are kind of set back further than they should be, and that's how you tell they're wearing a mask. Same thing with pandas. Their eyes are a little bit too far back in their heads. Looks like a person wearing a fake panda suit. Next question from Andrea Crocieri, maybe. Are you still hungry of CF competition? Yeah, I had a lot of great experiences this past sanctional season, or the 2019 sanctional season. I didn't win any sanctionals. So that was a big disappointment, but I had a lot of really cool experiences, valuable learning experiences, some good competition outcomes that gave me a bit of motivation. I had my best CrossFit Open performance in my career in the 2020 Open. So I think there's still some more in the tank there, and I got a bit of motivation from that. Next question. Nice pronunciation. with a crying emoji and a hand clap. So I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not, but I'm doing my best. I appreciate the support. Next one from Juanje Torres. Just arrived. Do you have a gym at home? Because there are some guys around with a fucking box at home. Yeah, those are the perks of, I guess, being a pro sponsored athlete is you get some gear to train with. I live in a pretty small Toronto condo apartment in Toronto, so no, I don't have a gym at home because I barely have a living room at home. We have a little balcony, and there's a rowing machine on the balcony, and we have like a dumbbell. I have a few weight vests and things like that, so I can work out at home, but no, I don't have a gym. Oh well. Next question from Ken Job. What's a Ken Job? What do you use for your beard? Looks luscious. Oh, it is. I think I answered this earlier. I don't really use anything. For me, that's kind of the point of having a beard. It's not it's not something I put more time into. It's something I put less time into, or effort into, I should say. I put all my time into it by not messing with it. Question from Vaughn Coffee and Bacon. Do you have a mantra, phrase, sentence that you post somewhere that keeps you trying hard? I like that idea. Unfortunately, my partner that I live with, Lindsay, I think would get upset if I was leaving sticky notes everywhere. However, she does that sometimes. I do a bit of journaling. That might be the... But to answer your question, no. Like, I don't have a picture of a Russian boxer on my mirror in the bathroom that I crumple before I go work out or anything like that. There are some mantras I've sort of used over the years. I don't know if I actively create them. They just sort of come to be through just circumstances, and the universe kind of creates those for me. One that I used to use was pretty simple. It was just, I can do it. And it's, it's 4 words, but it's kind of like 3 parts. And I would sort of, I can do it. I can do it. And that would sort of coincide with, say, like rowing strokes on the rowing machine, or breathing pattern as I'm going for a run or something like that. That lasted for a while. And then sometimes I'll give myself a little pep talk before I go into the gym for a tough session. It's like, okay, why am I here? I want to be a great athlete. Okay, I got to do things today that contribute to me being a great athlete. So let's go be a great athlete. That was one I would use sometimes as I'm sitting in the car, procrastinating, waiting in the parking lot. All right, next questions. A lot of people commenting about pandas. Another one from Jap. Thank you very much for your answer. You really take your time for the followers. I try. I think we all have a little bit of extra time right now, so this is a fun way for me to spend it. Comment, hello from Turkey. Hello. Shouldn't you be in bed right now? It's like pretty late at night, I think, over there. It's about 6:40 here in Toronto. Wavy hand from the Vigomeshi. Hello. Argentina y Canada, un solo heart emoji. Hola. Charlie CrossFit. Hello. Oh, too many O's. Too many O's. Big G Fit. I am a tall masters athlete. Congratulations. CrossFitter since 2017. I have improved and reached PRs. Congratulations again. What tips do you give for a tall person for Oli lifts, gymnastics, etc.? I think Brent Fikowski is probably the guy you want to ask about this, but it's so the taller you are, of course, the longer limbs you have, the more physics comes into plays, essentially, right? Like you have, and typically your body weight might be a little heavier as well, so you have more weight going through more range of motion against longer levers. So the risk there is like to the joint integrity, or a risk of like overstressing the joints. Imagine, a tall person doing kipping pull-ups versus a short person. There's just more force and torque and range of motion going through the shoulder. So personally, I recommend that tall athletes do more like prehab, rehab, accessory work, muscle isolation, slow strengthening type stuff in order to support the high intensity, dynamic, kipping, explosive stuff or whatever. Kind of a general tip for recommendations. Especially if you're saying that you're a master's athlete, you'll also probably benefit from some extra, strengthening, preventative type training instead of just doing like a benchmark WOD every day. Question from Kiria Ken, maybe Kiria Ken. Hey Luke, will the live be saved after its end? It's 1 after midnight here. Oh man, thank you for staying up. I'm going to hit save if the option appears for sure. So hopefully that is still around when you wake up tomorrow. Go to bed, bro. Question from Simon Gislin. Simon. Hey Lucas, how are you planning on qualifying for the games this year? Open? Sanctional? Train from home? I had some sanctionals lined up, right? I had registered for a few. My plan this year was to be more domestic. So last season I did all international. I did South Africa, I did London, I did France, I did Brazil, and that was a lot of travel, a lot of money, a lot of time. So this year I wanted to be more North America. So I did. I registered for West Coast Classic in California, Can West Games in Vancouver, Asbury Park Games in New Jersey. So that was kind of the plan. But those are all basically canceled. Games probably canceled. So I might just sort of go back into a off-season type training. Guess we'll see. Hopefully people announce, what's going to happen soon, but I'm not too optimistic about that. Question from Big Caves. I'm still don't feel strong after suffering a torn tricep. What exercises? Next comment, do you suggest? Sorry. So unfortunately right now, depending where you live, most professionals, right? Most physiotherapists, chiropractor, that type of professional, they're probably not seeing clients. So I'm really, sorry to say that, because that's my number one recommendation is, number one, see a doctor. Number two, see a sports medicine doctor, professional. Number three, see a chiro or a physio to get, a rehab protocol. It really sucks that most of those offices are probably closed right now. So you're maybe going to have to do some self-rehabbing. Depending on where you're at in your recovery stage, you say that you don't feel strong after suffering a torn tricep. So hopefully that means that you're not walking around with your tricep all bunched up near the origin and the muscle is still torn and you need surgery. Hopefully what you're saying is, oh, things have kind of healed up, but I just don't feel strong. In that case, I'd recommend starting with a little bit of tissue work. So you want to sort of, lacrosse ball, voodoo band, voodoo flossing, if you've ever seen that, to basically just try to first kind of break down some of the scar tissue that might have accumulated. That's going to free up some blood flow and sort of break up some of that scar tissue and help you kind of lay down and realign some of those muscle fibers with the exercises that you then do after that. So number one, a bit of soft tissue work. Number two, if you are still really feeling pain and weakness, start with some isometrics or some static holds. So that means you're not putting the muscle through a long range of motion. What you're doing is you're fixing the range of motion and you're just working on using the mind-muscle connection, using your brain to just fire those fibers, and you're teaching your body that it's safe to contract and you're not going to hurt yourself if you contract. So that's step two. Step one, some tissue work. Step two, some isometrics, some static contractions. And then step three is working on that range of motion. If you can do all of those things, then maybe you start loading it up with the sport-specific movements. So maybe you start doing some push-ups or some full range of motion shoulder presses or things like that. But you got to pick sort of where you're at in that hierarchy there. Question from R. Visners. Do you train strongman? I've never done a strongman competition, but yeah, I love the movements. When I lived in Victoria, I had a lot of quote unquote equipment in my parents' backyard. So I had like a log that I found on the beach. I had a big rock that I found on the beach. I filled up some water jugs full of sand, and I would use those for farmers carry. So I like that type of like odd object training. I think it's good for strength and cardio. If you just try carrying a rock or a sandbag around on your shoulder for 20 minutes, you're going to feel like you're doing some good conditioning. It's a good challenge to the core muscles as well. And it just looks badass, right? To like flip a log over your shoulder or whatever. Another question that just says cannabis. I think I talked about that earlier. Hopefully you can go back and see. SK Pagan, been sore more since quarantine. Any suggestions? Yeah, probably more daily movement. I don't know what your life is, but I know in my experience, and my partner Lindsay, who's working from home, being in quarantine, working from home, whatever, means that you're like sitting a lot more, right? Even just like walking to the bus stop, that's been taken out of your routine. So maybe setting a timer for every 30 minutes, 40 minutes, every hour at the longest. You want to be getting up, moving around, go for like a 5-minute walk, stretch out a little bit, because you're probably trying to maintain your exercise routine, but you're probably not maintaining like your daily movement levels, if that makes sense. So if that's the case for you, that would be my recommendation. Sean Big, you are a great athlete, Luke. Respect, my man. Thanks. Regards from Serbia, Europe. Hope you're doing well in Serbia. Beto Kokarcagno. Beto Kokarcagno. Maybe that's your name. Greetings from Mexico. Hola. Your favorite moment from the games? I got a few. The clean and jerk ladder in 2013 was, of course, a highlight for me. Also, the double banger, the sledgehammer event in 2012 was a really cool event for me. That was a great moment. We could hear you the whole time. Okay, thanks for the update. Hey from Greece. Hey. Scroll a little bit more here. Another question from Beto. Have you ever tried Animal Flow? I've tried something called MoveNat, which I think is kind of similar. But no, for some reason that's a big thing in my Instagram Explore algorithm right now. It's usually pretty girls doing like one arm balance on the floor and then shoot your leg through and twist back and go into a downward dog type thing. I think it's cool. That's probably a great way to train at home right now because you just need a little bit of floor space and you're going to load up your shoulders. You're going to work on single-sided unilateral training. So Animal Flow seems like a good idea. But no, I've never done like a program or followed a video or ebook or anything like that. Question from JMag Photo. Any recommendations on hypertrophy training? Would you recommend traditional bodybuilding style or a more hybrid style, mixing CrossFit, bodybuilding, powerlifting, etc.? Probably the latter, the mixture. Although, what even is traditional bodybuilding style? If you actually look at like legit bodybuilders, like Ronnie Coleman, for example, he did a lot of extreme powerlifting style training. He wasn't just doing isolation exercises. So, I mean, if you actually look at real legit bodybuilders, they're doing a lot of functional training. They're also doing whatever, like, cardio aerobic type stuff at different heart rate zones and things like that, and high intensity sprints. So, like, actual bodybuilding training is still good training. But if you just mean like doing, cable isolation exercises and leg press and things like that, then that might not be the best. As an aside, especially for like female athletes, from what I've read, from what I understand, female athletes tend to see better gains in terms of strength and muscle and things like that when lactic acid is involved. I'm not sure why. Maybe there's a chemical cascade that results in higher testosterones or something like that. But for female athletes, doing some more of that nasty high-intensity lactic acid training seems to contribute better to a lot of goals, bodybuilding or numbers or whatever. Hello from Almeria. Hola. Message from Tommy K 3887. Lucas, what is it? I don't think I have the answer for you. Yassine Parisian. Hello from Algeria. Hello. Another question from Sean Big. Hi, Luke. Can you explain about the nutrition, how to measure how much the fat intake? So if you have a food scale, that's probably the best way. You weigh the food, you put in the grams into like an app in your phone if you have like a MyFitnessPal, and that'll give you a rough estimation. Now, people go really crazy with like trying to hit their macros or their food intake numbers.